All right, we're back. We're at BookCon 2015. This is BookView Now. I'm Rich Foley, and we are right now with Leigh Bardugo.
Hi.
It's so nice to have you. We have you for an hour.
Yes, you lucky soul.
Settle in.
All right.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk, though, first about some of your books, which we're very excited about. We'll talk about the Grisha trilogy, but your new one, Six of Crows.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, they've told me when I was talking to some of the folks at your publishing company, they said Game of Thrones meets Ocean's 11. That's the craziest combination of words I've heard in a long time.
You know, you would think that, but I really just wanted to write a magical heist.
Right.
I wanted to write a heist, set it in the Grisha world, you know, have magic be an issue in it, and it was really fun to write. And I will say, even though we always use that as the pitch, the leader of my gang, Kaz Brecker, is not George Clooney. He's not suave. He's not slick. He is just the toughest, smartest, most desperate kid in the room. So,
but there's a cool, I mean, the heist thing is really cool.
I think so.
And you obviously, there was some interest for you to find out the big theft element. Where did that come from in your world?
Well, I've always loved heist stories. I love like the ragtag band of misfits pulls off impossible job. You know, Dirty Dozen, Inglourious Bastards, Guardians of the Galaxy even. And so I've always been a heist fan, but also I was raised by my grandfather. And he was like this thug from Boston who taught me to play poker and play pool and pickpockets. And
I like this guy.
He was fantastic. But he was this kind of high culture, low culture guy because he also loved opera and you know, made me read The Ballad of Reading Gaol when I was like 10. Yeah, so I think he was a big influence on this book. And although he did, when I would lose in poker, if I cried, he'd give me my money back, which was maybe not the best life lesson.
Yeah, well, your background, you know, where you grew up in Jerusalem.
I was born in Jerusalem, but I grew up in LA.
Okay, so that's another interesting Where did the interest in Russian culture and that background come from for you?
You know, on one side, I'm half Russian and Lithuanian. On the other side, I'm half Spanish and Moroccan. And I like to say, you know, we've been kicked out of every country. So I think for me, growing up, Russia always occupied the role of the kind of glamorous oppressor. It was scary, but it was beautiful at the same time. And I found very early on that even if you didn't know anything about Russia, you still had very powerful associations with it.
Right.
So you still probably had seen a Fabergé egg or images of the Winter Palace, but you also had these brutal associations like Stalin and the Gulag. And to be frank, that's a very valuable kind of association for a fantasy world.
And the books, like when you were first starting the Grisha trilogy and you were building that world, did you have confidence that there was going to be that interest in this cultural element? I mean, it was definitely a departure from some other fantasy books.
Well, that's part of the reason I did that. I mean, I'm a huge fantasy fan, and some of my favorite fantasies are set, you know, have medieval Europe and medieval England in particular as their cultural touchstone.
Right.
And I love broadswords and tunics and mead as much as the next person, but I just wanted to take people someplace different.
Right.
It was my first book, so I had no idea if anybody ever would want to read it, and I feel like I got quite lucky in that. But also, I wanted warfare, you know, modern warfare to be an issue. You know, what happens when you bring a gun to a magic fight was one of the driving questions of the book. So that also changed sort of the time period that I was using as the point of departure.
Yeah, and there's a whole world around it. I mean, in terms of recipes and like there's, you know, some of the elements in Russia that inspired you, but the characters too. There's a language all of its own. That must be fun, and the whole world-building component of it.
It is fun. I think I've gotten a lot braver in terms of world building. Like, I think I made some decisions early on that I would probably go back and do differently, but I think with Six of Crows, I'm in a completely different corner of this world I've created, and I think I was more willing to take risks. I don't think I could have written that book as my first book.
Yeah, there is, but you mentioned you're still in the same, you said a different corner, but there's a connection there.
Yeah.
Did you envision that originally as a place where that maybe you could travel from one place to the other?
I can't say that I knew from the beginning. Again, my only goal in writing Shadow and Bone was to finish a book.
Right.
You know, and even the thought of writing a trilogy was pretty far from my mind until I was about halfway through and thought, this is a bigger story, and started taking notes on the second and third books. And then as I was working through the trilogy, you hear about Kerch, this other country, where there's a grand university and the World Stock Exchange. And I always had in my head that it was this world that was inspired by the Dutch Republic of the 1700s. And a little bit of like New Amsterdam, Old Amsterdam, you know, a little bit of Vegas. So I really wanted to go visit, but I didn't know if I would have the chance. And fortunately, the Grisha trilogy was successful enough that people were interested in staying in the world.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know, and the idea of Six of Crows allows you to, you said, be more brave. I mean, so you've learned a few things along the way.
I think so.
So do you know how long you want to go with this one? Where are you?
It's going to be 2 books.
Okay.
It's the kind of thing where once the team is built, it could potentially be 12, but in my mind for now it's 2 books.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it there. And there's 5 POVs, and I will say you don't have to have read the trilogy to read Six of Crows.
Right.
You can just start with that. But it's multiple POVs, it's a heist, it's a prison break, it's, everybody's got baggage you have to learn about and backstory. So it's a very intense writing experience.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, when you thought about writing these books, were you always going to be a writer when you were getting out of school? Was that where you were going? You've done a lot of different things, but this is a cool combination of seems like a lot of your interests.
Well, I always wanted to be a writer. I mean, I have a picture that my friend drew for me when I was 14. That's me at a book signing. Like, that was the dream. That was always the dream. And I was an only child, so I would walk around telling myself stories all of the time. And I still do that. I just put my Bluetooth in so people don't think I'm nuts. Yeah, but it's an amazing invention. But then, on paper, it sort of looks like, oh, I was a copywriter and I did this and I did that. But the truth is, I'd sort of lost faith in myself. I would get an idea, I would start a book, then I would just lose momentum. And I really had to commit to finishing a terrible first draft. That was really the switch that had to flip, where I said, I'm not going to write a great book, I'm not going to write the great American novel, I am just going to get it done. And I didn't understand that what I was really doing was what a lot of authors do, which is they write the roughest first draft imaginable, and then they go back and they make it good.
So you knew, though, there was something in there.
Yeah.
Or maybe not new, but you felt confident enough to revisit it.
Once you have the whole story in front of you, you can step back and see it, and it gave me so much confidence to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, in film or television, you get a very skewed idea of what writing a book is like. It's somebody, somebody has a breakup or gets a great idea, and then they just sit there, or they cry, and then boom, there's the book. It's not how books get written at all.
Your book is the kind of book that can cross over really well into adult and younger readers. I mean, I think you're probably thinking about some of those younger readers when you're writing it, but I know for a fact that I have many adult friends that have read your other books and love them. What do you find in terms of the people that you talk to at some of your signings and the sort of people that are attracted to this world that you've created, this sort of Russian influence world?
I find that I truly have fans of all ages.
Yeah.
And I will sometimes get emails or have people show up and think, oh, I thought I was going to be the only adult here.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I bet you don't get letters like this all the time. But I think there's a real misconception about young adult.
Right. Well, the category name probably starts that.
And I think that's fair.
We're going to have to figure that out a little bit.
It's a very broad category. It's not a genre. And the thing I've found is that the kind of major transitions that happen in young adults are things that resonate with everybody. You don't grow up and stop growing up.
Right.
You get married, you get divorced, you move to a new city, you start a new job, you go through these incredible transitions. You're always trying to find your tribe and figure out who you are. And I think that's one of the reasons so many adults really like these books.
Yeah, and I think the idea of finding your tribe, events like this, whether it's Comic-Con or BookCon, really is a place where you see those tribes really gravitating. They'll find you and they'll find some of the other things they love, but all in one place to have this many people here.
I love Comic-Con, I do, and I'm definitely an SF&F girl, but this is my first year at BookCon, and it's really something special. Comic-Con, it's a lot of noise, a lot of TV stuff, a lot of sound and fury, a lot of boobs, and BookCon is much more my people, and I feel like it's like our little gathering, so I'm thrilled to be here.
It's one of the subsets that you're going to see at Comic-Con every year, but you're right, it is that slice
we're
that is really focused on the written word part. But I also love the fact that the energy that you're seeing now, some of it is coming from Hollywood. It'll be interesting to see what happens with BookCon, but you're seeing a multi-platform sort of approach to some of these books now as they're being developed, as they're being thought about.
Yeah.
How about you? Is any of your stuff, where are we going with some of that?
Well, Shadow and Bone, the Grisha trilogy has been optioned, and David Heyman, who made Gravity and the Harry Potter films, is attached. I got to meet him in London. It was pretty cool.
It's always fun, even if they don't get made, to get to meet those people.
Even if they don't get made, and I have to say, he is a really smart guy. He's very fun to talk to, and he really likes to work with writers. So you feel, you meet some people in Hollywood, and you get the feeling they maybe didn't read the book. Maybe their assistant read the book.
Yeah.
So that was really fantastic, and we'll see what happens with Six of Crows. It's always an exciting and terrifying thought to think of an adaptation, but I think we're seeing, I like to think that we're seeing sort of a shift towards having a little bit more respect for some of the things that storytellers do, particularly in young adult. Right. Instead of saying, well, this is popular, but we need to fix it. Instead saying, this is resonating with people, let's make something out of it.
Right. Well, we're going to be talking a lot more about your books, and I'm excited, but I'm also excited you're going to be here for the hour, and you got to help pick some of our guests.
I did.
Yeah, we have Rainbow Rowell, we have Maggie Stiefvater, and these are people that you wanted to come on. And Richelle Mead, do you know them? Are these friends of yours?
I know them. I know their books. Hung out with them. I mean, one of the great things about young adult is that we do a lot of the same festivals and conventions, and we get to sit around and talk, and it's just a pleasure for me to get to chat with them. So thank you for letting me do it.
Oh, you're kidding. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be the third wheel, sitting on the couch with you the whole time.
You can give me a poke if I start to do things wrong.
We'll be
have
together the whole time. It's very relaxed. But now we're going to set up for Rainbow in just a second, and we have a piece that we shot from her breakfast earlier this morning, which we're going to shoot to right now. So we'll be right back on our set of BookView Now.
So I went into journalism, and my first job was as Western Iowa reporter for the Omaha World Herald in Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah! Woo! Me and that person. So I hope that's the same person who liked Eleanor and Park. This person's like my soulmate. Western Iowa reporter for the Omaha World Herald is like the least important job at the Omaha World Herald. My job was literally to read stacks of small town newspapers. Are you from a small town? It's like, we all know Jim and Helga. Yeah? Their daughter came back from college for dinner. She came to church. So my job was to go through and read these small town newspapers and find stories. It was slim pickings, and my fingers were stained gray all day, every day. So I kind of made my name at the World Herald by covering bizarre things that happened in Western Iowa. Fortunately, there were many. I covered, you've probably heard of these stories because it is how I made my name. That's how I became my road to fame. About the Western Iowa pork queen. Do you know about pork queens? Yeah, like you have beauty queens maybe where you come from? Like we have pork queens and beef queens. So the Western Iowa pork queen who was a vegetarian. She's so sweet. She just didn't see a problem with it at all. She was like, I feel really good about pork. I just don't eat it. Probably my best and most famous story was about the largest popcorn ball in the world, which was in Sac County, Iowa. I told this story to John Green, and he interrupted me a lot, so I hope you won't. But he was like, no, that's not in Iowa, that's in Illinois. And I was like, listen, mister. I was there. It was the largest popcorn ball in the world. I've later found out there was more than one, but it was in Sac County. So the news wasn't that there was a giant popcorn ball in Sac County. That was the news like 2 years ago. But like when you build the biggest popcorn ball in the world, imagine yourself doing it. Okay, now you've had your day in the sun. What do you do with it, right? You can't just throw it away. You put it in a shed. You put the giant popcorn ball, the biggest popcorn ball in the world, in a shed. And then 2 years later, you have a meeting about it, and you're like, well, it's getting moldy. You know, plus I need that shed. So, I mean, I guess we could blow it up. We could probably blow it up. So, at the Sac County Fair that year, the headliner was, see, the world's largest popcorn ball gets spectacularly blown up. I drove from Omaha for that. I sat through the goat show, and I didn't even get to eat, like, Fritos. Do you know the Frito bags they put chili? Because I was about to get married, and I was on a diet, which was, I would eat them now. But, okay, so they came out, and it was the very end of the fair, and they said, all right, guys, we don't know what's going to happen. We're all in the stands. We don't know what's going to happen. We've got dynamite, actual dynamite. We drilled a hole in its core. We put the dynamite in there. We don't know what's going to happen. We blow it up. Maybe don't look directly at the popcorn ball. Well, who's going to listen to that? That's like saying don't look at the sun during an eclipse. We came for the popcorn ball. It's like if you have to look, maybe shield your eyes. Just like this. So the excitement was great. And we all counted off together, 3, 2, 1, and then there was a lag, and then it went, like in just 2 pieces. It was such a humiliation for Sac County, which I made sure the people of Omaha knew about. We kind of resent Western Iowa anyway. So that is how I became a columnist.
Doing this.
Hello.
All right, we're back. We're back on the set of BookView now at BookCon 2015. Very exciting day here. Lots of really enthusiastic and passionate readers. And we are sitting right now with our guest host for the hour, Leigh Bardugo. So nice to have you. Thank you for being here. We're also with Rainbow Rowell.
Hi.
How awesome that we have the two of you.
Awesome for me.
And I feel a little third wheelish because you guys know each other, and you said, "Can Rainbow come on?" I was like, "Are you kidding? Sign me up, baby." And for
She's going to make me feel guilty. She's going to be like, "You told me they wanted me to come."
No.
I noticed added to your schedule.
We just watched a segment from Rainbow's breakfast yesterday. Very funny.
Thank you.
And so I was thrilled to have you. But
I'm happy to be here.
it was Leigh who said, "Get her, please."
I'll hang out with Leigh anytime, anywhere. Just
cool.
to tell me where to go.
Really noted.
Yeah,
You guys know each other.
Through this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've
Through
done a lot of festivals together. I think the first one was
LeakyCon.
LeakyCon.
They were like author Olympics. We had to do author Olympics at
I ran
LeakyCon.
suicides.
Yeah.
In a maxi dress.
Really?
Yeah. There is no humiliation.
Video
I
of
won't
this
embrace.
somewhere.
Yes.
Online.
Yes, there is, and there's also a picture of me essentially mid-air.
Yeah.
It was a somewhat traumatizing experience, but the kids seem to like
Yeah,
it.
when you get like 8 YA middle grade authors together and then like have gym class. That's what it was. We were all weeping openly.
Yeah, we are not suited to physical combat at all.
No.
Yeah.
I understand. Well, we just
That's
talked.
what this is, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
This is the warm-up and then the arm wrestling portion.
Okay.
Yeah, now we need to make room right here. We can just move Tony's book and you can roll it.
Absolutely. Who needs it?
My biceps are ready.
Well, we just talked about Six of Crows, but you have a new book coming out, Carry On.
I do, yeah,
Which we don't have in our hands yet. We do have, though, your exclusive collector's edition of Fangirl, which is a really
beautiful.
wonderful
Pretty.
book. But tell us about Carry On, and have you been able to read it yet?
I'm one of the lucky few who has.
Leigh is one of
What do
maybe
you
3
think?
people who has
Yes,
read it. Yeah.
I'm one of the privileged.
Yeah.
Give us your quick review.
I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you.
I think it is. Well, it's interesting because Rainbow
After
and
she gave me
I-
notes, she now thinks it's fantastic.
You didn't want me to just be like,
No,
great.
I didn't.
It's not what writers go to other writers
Right.
for.
No.
Right.
Gentle notes. So apparently I made you cry.
I got
laughed?
off the phone and cried.
I thought I was so encouraging.
I was planning you were very encouraging.
That's why I
but
should never teach
I was
children.
planning a bridal shower that night. I got off the phone with Leigh, and then I had to blow up balloons and stuff, and I was just crying.
It's a beautiful image.
It is good. The colors were
But you
lilac and
appreciated
green.
it somehow after the fact. You
Oh
came
God,
back,
no!
yeah.
It was a lifesaver. Yeah.
Thank you. But
Tears
I
of
was
joy.
really excited to read it because I'd read Fangirl, which is when we meet Simon and Baz.
Right.
But this is a whole new take on that.
Right.
In Fangirl, they're meant to sort of embody fan fiction that Kath, the
Yeah.
protagonist, is writing. But you took a totally different approach with the book.
Right. So in Fangirl, the main character writes fan fiction about this sort of Harry Potter Twilight-ish world. And so there's fan fiction in this book that she writes about Simon Snow. But in working on that book, I kept thinking about all the Chosen One stories that I love and why I can't walk away from them, and why even in this book, I kind of created this world and this Chosen One. And so when I was done with it, I thought, well, what would I do with Simon Snow? So it is a spin-off, but it's a standalone book. Because it starts and it's a completely different thing happening. It's its own world.
Yeah, there's no question that it's a response to Harry Potter, and there are certain things that you can feel are meant to be direct callbacks.
Right.
But I thought, I mean, you talk about Chosen One narratives, but I remember we were recently in Orlando, and we went to, I don't know why I just got really Long Island when I said that, but we were in Orlando and we went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
For Lee's birthday, that's where she
For my
wanted to
birthday?
go. It was her, I don't want to say which birthday, but I thought, oh God, she invited me. What if it's a big crazy party? Because I'm not much
She
of a
didn't realize
partier.
how square I am.
Well, we only hung out at cons. And it was like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the Wizarding World.
I know, we were like, we got to get on the water taxi immediately. Yes, there may have been face glitter, but But one of the things you said to me was, I think Harry Potter would be scarred for life from the things that happened. And something I think that you do that's really interesting in Carry On is you talk a lot about bravery and its costs.
Right, and sacrifice. And
yeah.
And the way that, so, I mean, for me, my fandom has always been about a chosen one. I was a Star Wars junkie all through my childhood and adulthood. And then it was Lord of the Rings and Arthurian legend, and then there was a lot of Jesus in there too, I'm not going to lie.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Gotten letters about how there are no other chosen ones.
Right, I was primed. Yes. And so I just keep going for that narrative again and again. But as an adult, I find myself always thinking about what happens after, because the chosen one gets called. Yeah. He always says, it's always a he. It's usually a he.
Hey now.
It's usually
That's
a he.
because you haven't read my books.
Well,
that's why.
But you know what I mean. Yeah. I mean, like, we're sort of programmed. And that person always says yes. There's never this moment of like, you know what? I've got a lot of power. Maybe I'll do what I want to do. It's always like, I hope there's an old guy wandering the desert and that he tells me what to do, and I hope it's really scary and hard and that I might die, because all I want to see. So.
But when you're a kid, I just saw Mad Max Fury Road,
I loved it. Yeah, me too.
But I had this moment from the very beginning of realizing if I had seen it when I was 14, I would have been like, hell yeah, I can do that. I can get that done.
Yeah.
In the first 30 seconds when he jumps out on the thing, I was like, I'd be dead.
Yeah, dead.
I'd be so dead.
Roadkill.
Yeah. And I think
Roadkill.
Hey. I think we want those stories.
Oh, you want clarity.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you're chosen, especially if you're a kid who doesn't know what you're doing, which most kids, I guess, but this feeling of like, oh, this is clarity. Yeah. I will fight this war. I will die for this cause. I will win this battle, and I don't even need to think past the end.
The repercussions.
No.
Who's going to be in charge after any of that.
But when you're an adult reading those books, because I never left those books behind or those stories behind. I'm someone who really took everything I loved as a child with me. And then I read Harry Potter as an adult. I think you bring a much more adult sensibility to, like, why isn't anyone hugging Harry? I really feel that he might have attachment issues,
So you're a mom too.
I'm a mom too.
So right? I think I'm not. But
I think you're very cold.
I am. I have no heart at all.
Right?
I love the chosen stories, and I always feel like I would die too. I would be the one that died. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah. But you would be chosen to die.
Yeah, I would be the one who would be chosen. Like whenever they do the Hunger Games thing, I'm usually the dead guy, like right off the thing.
I would just run for the potato chips and just, die
dead.
happy.
Which district has potato chips?
That's right. That one.
But I sort of hope that I'm that guy that when challenged, I'm thinking I'm going to die, but I actually have that inner resolve to rise up like Harry and become the stronger kid that I didn't really think I was. I thought I was the weak guy who would die. But no, I am the chosen one. That's what I'm hoping I pull that card.
Yeah, I think we all have that.
We all
have the desire to see our hidden talents recognized. Right. I think that's another reason that adults love YA. Because a lot of people are in jobs that they hate and are just waiting for somebody to say, hey, you kid with the moxie, you got it. But I also love, something that's very different about Carry On is I've read all of your books now, and Rainbow writes falling in love like nobody's business. Like, where you love both
people. Nobody's business.
Nobody's business, but where it makes you want to fall in love. Like, it's a very different kind of writing, and it's hard for me to call it romance because it often happens in very kind of pedestrian circumstances, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, in Carry On, you have some of that intense, fighting and all of that happening, and Baz and Simon are an unusual couple for most mainstream fantasy.
Right. Right. What would you like me to say about that? Baz.
Well, they're gay wizards.
They
Rainbow.
are gay.
Tell us more.
They're gay, and there's I think there are people who read Fangirl. Like that's the first question. They are Baz and Simon going to actually be in love, or am I going to just be kind of coy and Sherlocky and hint at it? You know what I mean? Yeah. Come on. So. And I'm not like it's just it's a love story. Like there's no hinting. It's just there. Yeah. This is what this is. This is a love story about these two guys who fall in love.
Has there ever been anyone who said, I wasn't expecting that, or is everybody already there?
Well, I don't know because nobody's getting to read this book. It's like there are no advanced readers copies. So I think people want that. I think they really want it. I think people are kind of. I think people want it. I think it would have been a real letdown if I had done sort of
if you'd done some kind of shift, especially after Fangirl.
I did have one reader who might be a member of my family who said, it'd be just as good if they didn't fall in love, right? It'd be just as good. They'd still have that great chemistry and they'd still be friends. And I thought, no, that's just
That's a different story.
That's a different story.
It's a totally different story. We have a lot of stories about guys who are friends.
There's so many stories about guys who are friends.
We have a lot of bromances out there. I think we deserve an actual romance.
Yeah, and there was so much promise for them to fall in love in this book. And that's one reason I was excited to write it. I actually started writing Carry On as a short story, and it was just going to be a Simon and Baz and love story. And then I realized when I started it that I was much more interested in the politics of their world and the more serious aspects of Simon's life. And so it became this longer book. But I wouldn't have wanted to write it if they didn't fall in love.
No. I mean, to be honest, that's part of the reason I read your books, is because I love that
Like, somebody better fall in love.
Somebody better fall in love or I'm out. Quick. I mean, 1 star on Goodreads. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Eleanor and Park, just to go back in time for a minute. It was the first book I read by you.
First book you read.
First book ever.
Really opened a lot out for you.
It did. I mostly like pictures.
Right.
It was the first of your books I read. It was recommended to me by another author, Jess Brody, and I don't read a lot of contemporary. I mostly read fantasy. And then
She needs love and dragons.
Love and dragons and fire. And I just thought it was so brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
And I feel like it pulls this Jedi mind trick when it comes to self-esteem and girls. And it's hard for me not to wonder how much of like your own experience growing up worked into that. I'm hesitant to ask that because I feel like sometimes lady authors get that more than male authors.
Sure. But no, I mean, Eleanor's a fat kid and I was a fat kid, so
We both are.
yeah, so I definitely. But the thing about girls is kind of every girl tells you they were a fat kid, because even if I was legit fat. But even if you weren't,
It's legit fat.
No,
and how can I start that blog?
legit. I had to shop. I didn't get to buy the regular clothes in the regular clothes sections. I don't know. Does that count?
Maybe that's the
My
point.
mother. My mother said I was big boned, and she's actually right. I also had big bones underneath everything. But anyway,
You're not going to get osteoporosis.
See, look at this argument we're having, though. It doesn't matter. I was fat, but everyone says they were. So when women read Eleanor and Park, even women who I would never think would identify with that character's self-esteem and weight issues do.
That's all internal.
Yeah.
Well, I think though for me, there are these. You see Park's POV and you see Eleanor's POV.
Oh, absolutely, it's different.
And you see the way Eleanor views herself, and I think that resonated for whatever your size is or wherever you've been. This is what you're bombarded with for the entire. This is not a secret. This is what you're put through.
Right.
Then you switch to Park's POV, and you can sense him desiring her and going through. And that lust, I think, is more powerful than any speech you could ever give about body positivity. Because it's like, you know what? You are actually not the person you think you are.
Right.
And I found that very beautiful, and I wish I'd read it when I was 12.
Me too.
Yeah.
If I get a time machine.
That's right.
Leigh Bardugo, I have something for you.
Wow. Actually, my 13-year-old self might be a little pissed off by that. No, I would be expecting the chosen one call.
Oh, right.
But it would be like a sword or a dragon, and they'd be like, this will really help you get through high
Here's
school.
a story about a girl with low self-esteem.
Well, I have to tell you, this has been incredibly entertaining. I just wanted to sit over and watch over there and let you guys go for another hour.
Nice.
But we have to move on. I will tell you, Fangirl, the exclusive collector's edition, which does have some incredible artwork.
It has a ribbon bookmark. Very few books have those these days.
And Carry On is so big that I can't even get my hands on it yet. Only a special few.
Really?
And you're going to really wonderful places when you can't get your hands on the book. But it's been
You're in
so
a good
nice
place
to have
when no
you.
one can get your book.
So we all dream of.
That's the new success in writing. So great to have you, Rainbow.
Thank you.
And Leigh, we're sticking around, but really wonderful to have you here.
Thank
Thanks
you so much
for joining us. And we'll be right back. We'll be right back with Maggie Stiefvater. Everybody likes to talk about your love of fast cars. You're a Camaro driver. We talked earlier about, I don't know if it's a bitchin' Camaro, but it's a cool Camaro. Tell me about where did that come from?
Oh man, this is also my family's fault. Growing up, we grew up with old cars. My father used to restore cars. He still restores cars. He's not interested in them once they work properly, so many of those years of my childhood were spent by the side of the road or riding in flatbeds or waiting for a tow truck to arrive. And once the car was fixed, it was gone. And my father was always saying, yes, the car is like, it has to have character. And so now I think it must be the same way people feel when they pick out a pair of jeans or a nice pair of shoes. They feel complete when they're wearing that. That's what they look like on the inside. That's what Camaro looks on the outside, like I look on the inside.
Yeah. How do you reconcile your love of Camaros with your love of bagpiping? No, I'm serious.
I like the way that you present them as opposites.
They seem opposite to me.
You
don't
can
they?
possibly be cool because you have a Camaro, but then on the other side, I read on the internet
cool at
that
all.
you're a competition
No.
bagpiper.
It's just like, how do you fit the bagpipes in the Camaro? I guess is my question.
Here is a story. I was once in an accident with my very first car when I was leaving college, and the drunk lady who hit my car totaled my car, and when the paramedics came to get me out of my car, they also had to remove a set of bagpipes, a full-size Celtic harp, a cello, and a baron, which is a geeky Irish drum, out of the car, as well as myself, because that was the kind of college kid that I was at the time.
That's not geeky. That's the new cool.
Clearly.
Perhaps you haven't
Clearly.
tried it yet. All right, hello, Rich Foley here. We're on the set of Book For You Now. We're at BookCon 2015. Incredible gathering of people. We have a new guest. We have Maggie Stiefvater, who's joining Leigh Bardugo, our guest host for the full hour. It's actually, we're creeping into that full hour now. I haven't even talked about your earrings, by the way, which are quite cool.
I actually forgot what I was wearing, so that's nice.
They're very cool.
All right.
And Maggie's here. Maggie's new book is Pip Bartlett's Guide to Magical Creatures, which is very different from the other stuff you've done.
It's true.
But of course, we've talked about the Raven Cycle books before. We had Blue Lily, Lily Blue.
Yes. That's like a tongue twister. You have to try and say it 14 times
I think I just
fast.
messed it up,
It's a
too.
Blue, lily, lily, blue.
Blue Lily, Lily Blue.
There you go.
Great book, and it's really cool to have you here, first of all. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And I love that Leigh was like, can we talk to Maggie? Because I said, I know Maggie a little bit. I want her here again. But how do you guys know one another?
I actually proposed to her at LeakyCon.
She did, and I accepted.
Everything
of course.
happened at LeakyCon.
Maggie Stiefvater asked you to be her bride. You say yes.
That is the rule. Every time we are at LeakyCon,
Yeah.
we are married. The sad thing is, I think they've renamed it, actually. So
now it's GeekyCon, and Geeky Bride doesn't have the same ring.
we
as
might
Leaky
have
Bride.
to renew our vows later.
Yes.
Why did they leave Leaky behind?
They wanted to Leaky came from Leaky Cauldron from Harry Potter,
Right.
and they had a lot of other fandoms who were coming in,
Right.
and I'm actually co-chairing the lit track there this year, so it's going to
more
be a
inclusive.
much wider, more inclusive of other fandoms.
Well,
but
I
still
will
the
say,
spirit.
that in the I worked for Borders for a long time, and we worked with all the Harry Potter blogs and all the people who were doing podcasts at the time. Leaky Cauldron was one of them. And it is amazing to see some of these people now moving into much broader worlds.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken that, and it did the same thing that we saw with Stephanie Myers, the whole band of folks that started with that. It's just they grow into other things, and they keep doing more.
That's the power of YA and middle grade.
Yeah, man.
I mean, you get them young. Start your own cult.
It's a huge. So
Yeah,
you're
we have your
the
children.
point.
That's
so you're
really
married
the
now.
message.
Mold
Yes.
them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like a third wheel even more
So-
now.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you about was I follow your Tumblr.
Thanks. That legitimizes all of the time that I spend on Tumblr.
That
so
is
thank you.
true. No, I find a lot of good music through your Tumblr. But I have a question that's unbook related, and then we'll go into the meat of the subject. But how do you avoid getting speeding tickets? Is my question. Because I just got my first one when I was 16.
I read about that on Twitter.
Yeah, that was
First
it was
one?
worth
How
it.
did you accomplish this? She got a speeding ticket in LA. How is this
Ventura. I was
possible?
going up the coast.
I don't understand how it's possible.
Road
I
was
was
wide
there
open.
in the Camaro, and I think I went 50 the entire way.
I was not going 50.
I understand from the speed that you posted on Twitter, there's no way that you get out of that speeding ticket.
Well, the cop was behind me apparently for 3 miles before I noticed him, but at the speed I was going, that's not a very long time.
No.
But cars actually come into Raven Boys. You put
It's true.
that passion in there, the Raven Cycle, which I am loving.
Thank you.
I actually started with the Scorpio races, which is one of my favorite, not
The
just
book
young
of my
adult
heart.
books. I think you feel that. Like, it is a beautiful book, and I rec it to everybody. Recommend it, not wreck it. And I'm curious about like what made the Raven Cycle the next step after Scorpio races.
When I was a kid, I used to read everything that my father gave me. Well, first I read everything my mother gave me because she started out with these wonderful old award-winning fantasies with stickers on them. They were good for you. It was C.S. Lewis. It was Madeline L'Engle. They were amazing. And I loved them. And I thought, I want to write that. And my father would give me his hand-me-down thrillers that were always called things like Shot in the Back and Point Blank. And they always had a picture of like
Ken
a...
Follett, or was it
Usually
like
a gun thing involved.
like
There was a lot of Jack Higgins
Ross
involved.
McDonald? Okay, trying to
It
get a
always
feel.
involved like a middle-aged guy on the back wearing a leather jacket and posing with a golden retriever or an AK-47.
A golden retriever.
Yeah,
the
sure.
most deadly animal.
Exactly, and I also loved those. I didn't care that they
Yeah.
were terrible,
You read
and so I always thought the perfect book would be combining those,
And you kind of have.
and that's what Blue Lily Lily Blue is.
Yeah.
So that's
Wait, you
the
did
Raven
that very
Cycle.
well,
I know.
actually.
I've had some practice.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. But the fourth book, The Raven King,
The
we
Raven
get
King.
next year.
Yes.
Yes, in January, I want to say.
March.
March?
That's a different month. Yeah.
It is a different month. And what can we expect? Without spoilers, what can we
Without
expect?
spoilers, there's 2 kisses, which is notable because
Long kisses, short kisses.
I'm not
kisses on
telling
the
you
cheek?
anything. It's notable because, as you know, in this series there actually have been no kisses, as Blue has always been told that if she kisses her true love, he'll die, which puts a damper
You
on
should
it.
show restraint.
And so I have enjoyed that Shiver, which was my first really big YA, was full of kissing. All it was kissing.
Yeah.
And so in this series, there's been no kissing whatsoever. And so I
There's been
feel
a lot of tension, though.
yes. So that finally comes to fruition. There's
Okay.
kissing. There's death. There's cars.
Possibly in rapid succession.
There's more electric cars in book 4 than have ever been in any of the other books.
Electric cars?
Yes.
I would have
Oh, so
thought
we're
Actually,
Probably
that is
not
notable
much to
because
you.
I actually apparently am having a drag race with John Green
In
at
his electric car?
NerdCon in his electric car. So
What will you be driving?
I will be driving my Mitsubishi, which is the opposite of an electric car. Actually, the
He's going
environment
to
weeps
lose.
gently.
Does he know that
a
he's
little
going
bit.
to lose?
Everyone has told him online. I don't know. We'll see.
I wonder if he has a secret. Like he has like a secret nitro pack in the
The
in the
Teslas
car.
have those insane buttons.
That's right. I think it should be like the Fast and the Less Furious. Will be. You should just promote it. You should get Vin Diesel to come and like and run the race.
You should come. Good times.
Now Pip Bartlett.
Yes.
Totally different thing.
Yes. Well, I have 2 children. They're 9 and 10. And so I wanted to write books that were for that age group. And I also wanted to collaborate with my friend Jackson Pierce. She loves animals as well. What would they really want to read? And it's this book. And so it's about a girl who can talk to magical creatures. No one else can talk to them. And her aunt is a vet for magical creatures. And so after a unicorn incident, she goes to spend the summer with her. And you can tell it's a Maggie Stiefvater book because although Pip has no angst and terrible things happen to her, there is a flaming pickup truck. So at least there's that.
That's
that
the
tie-in, yeah.
tie-in. Yeah, the Easter egg for
Yes,
fans.
exactly.
It's interesting that it's her aunt's clinic because I couldn't help but notice, Blue lives in this house full of ants.
Yes.
It actually reminded me a lot of Practical Magic and Alice Hoffman. I like that you're creating these kind of little pockets of women, raising women with magical powers.
This is a secret, but I'm going to tell you now.
Tell me.
I was kind of raised by creepy women.
Fantastic.
All of the women in my family are somewhat creepy. In fact, my sister is so creepy. She's 10 years younger than me. Before anything important, we will call her up and say, is there anything that we should know about the upcoming trip? And then she will give you some
I need
creepy...
you to clarify because
What?
there's a lot of ways for
Creepy in a
people to be
good way.
creepy.
Yeah, eerie.
Like gothy?
No,
Like-
she wears flowered prints. That's not
Feral?
gothy. No, feral.
I'm
no.
sure there's a lot of kinds
Sure,
of
I'm
creepy,
thinking
right?
creepy as in like freaking you out kind of thing.
Like
Yes,
she jumps
that
out
is
from behind
exactly-
doors, or she serves you.
That is a very
raw meat.
narrow...
I'm trying to get
Are you describing me or are you
I don't
describing
know.
creepy?
Like how the heck did she know that kind of thing? or
Yes, that's
something?
exactly it.
Oh,
Unsettling.
unsettling.
Yes.
Yes, so for instance, I bought that race car when I was having my midlife crisis, and I did a couple of national races, and when I was going to one of the rallies, she said, by the way, you might want to, I don't know, something about wheels, like the left front wheel, and I said, yeah, my car has one. She goes, well, I wouldn't count on that.
Not for long.
And so we packed an extra wheel to go along with it. And so we went through a stage. We went sideways through one of the stages right into a rock, and the race would have been over because we
Holy
destroyed it.
moly.
But we had an extra wheel in the back because of creepy sister. So
The
I
medium.
feel like she's valuable sister, less
Yeah,
than
exactly.
creepy sister. That's
creepy and valuable are
the
not
weird
opposites.
sister. Yeah,
Yes, weird sister.
weird sister.
So what was it like though working with Jackson Pierce? I'm really curious because you've written this world, it's your world, and you've got to shape it like you wanted
Yes.
with both the Shiver and then with the Raven Cycle. Now you're doing this thing where you are sharing your brain with someone else and kind of collaborating. I'm curious how that change has been for you.
I never understood people who collaborated, to tell you the truth. I've never been a big group project person. However, this project appeared really organically. I had just done book 2 in the Spirit Animals series, which was giving me a world. It was like writing an
Right.
episode in a television series. So I
Yeah.
had no control. And so we were talking about what we would do if we had all the control. And instead it became this thing where we were sharing, throwing ideas back and forth, and just writing the most delightful thing we possibly could. It's so much faster than writing on your own. Normally when you get stuck, you have to sit there, you have to drive, then you get speeding tickets
It
in
happens.
California. And it takes time. Instead, though, I would just throw it to Jackson, she would throw it back to me, and so it's a really fast, satisfying process. There's none of the frustration.
Is it going to be a series?
Yeah, there's going to be 3.
Okay. And now that you've collaborated, would you do it again?
It would be a very particular person. I get along really well with Jackson, creatively.
And
so
you
it
have a
has to be,
similar sensibility, things
Maybe
you
you and I just
I
don't
see
know,
something
man.
right here. I see like a Fast and Furious with your speeding ticket now. I see sort of a Fast and Furious for women, which there's a place for this right now.
Did you see that face? I foresee
Fast and
actually
Furious is
slapping.
for women.
But I'm
By
saying
the way.
like
You don't
super
put
fast.
The Rock and Paul Walker and Vin Diesel in a movie with a whole bunch of
Of
fast
course,
cars.
of course, but you guys will be driving now, though.
I
You
see
know.
your point. I agree.
I don't know anything about cars, so I would just be like color commentary. But I also think it's interesting because there are people who you really like, but it's sort of like there are people who you love, but you wouldn't go on a road trip with, or you wouldn't room with them. It's dangerous.
It's
a
very true.
dangerous
Can you
thing.
imagine co-writing with anyone?
That's a hard question because
know.
if it's somebody I really admire, I would be like, just tell me more stories.
That's
I'm not
right.
going to do anything. And if it's somebody who you don't admire, what's the point?
And it really was an organic idea. I mean,
Yeah.
it came out of both of our brains. I don't think if you had asked me before that moment, are you going to co-write a book? I would have said, I don't. I work alone and always in black.
I work alone.
Yeah.
Like Batman.
Exactly.
But I also know your process is very different from mine. It's more similar to Lainey's in that you told me once that you read over everything that you wrote the night before.
I do.
And you perfect kind of the first part of the book before you move on.
That's true. Do you creepily catalog all of my processes, or
I
just?
do. I actually just listen when you're on panels
wow.
and take copious notes.
Legitimately, is that legit creepy?
That's legit creepy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in your cupboards. They're very spare.
It's true. We work in very much the same way.
Yeah, and
Although
I don't.
Jackson is more of an outliner. It's been good. We've learned things from each other.
Oh, that's cool.
Also, it's my first illustration credit. That is very exciting.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Before my first illustration credit, I was actually a full-time portrait artist before I was an author.
And you did equestrian art as well, right?
It's true, but when the economy went south, no one was buying horse portraits. So
Horses.
mostly I just painted copies of the old masters with the heads of cats on them
Nice.
and sold them on eBay.
I made a living.
I wouldn't mind
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Very nice.
And when you say you were a portrait artist, was this like somebody who works on the pier? Or was it like somebody
No,
who was
I
called
was-
to the homes of the wealthy to paint oils?
It was the latter.
Ooh. Did you meet any jerks?
No, but the worst commission, can I say this on television?
Yes,
The
we're live
worst-
streaming,
please
so it's not
do.
really TV
The
yet.
worst commission was actually an ugly baby. Because what are you going to
It
do,
was an
right?
ugly baby?
It was an ugly baby.
So
and
what
so
did
I
you
always
do?
go there to take my own reference photos and meet the subject because you're trying to capture more than a photograph. If it's just a photograph, you don't need an
So they
artist.
open up the swaddling and you're like,
And she wanted two of them in different poses, and I arrived and I thought, Jesus! And I
a
thought,
tough
well,
one.
I convinced her that one of them could be, can I say this? If you're watching, I'm so sorry. I hope he grew out of it. I convinced her that one of them should be his back turned, playing in the sand. I thought, look, that's adorable as a child. And the other one, she was kind of cradling his face so it was away from the camera. It was
very
the worst.
diplomatically done.
I agree. I thought they were very tasteful, but I hope he grew into
Oh, he will, because that's what happens. It'll be in like a Calvin Klein commercial before
Probably.
long or something. It's
Probably.
not gonna be
Like, let me
good.
tell you about the lady who traumatized me.
And it wasn't like you could turn it down. You had to pay the rent, and so
to paint the ugly
that was
baby.
the worst. I appreciate my art that I can do now.
Honest portrayal of an ugly baby. You have to do it.
I think that should be the title of your memoir. You have to paint the ugly baby.
It's going to be Drive It Like You Stole It. No, everything must go. The Maggie Stiefvater story.
I like that.
It's better.
Now, after the Raven Cycle,
Yes.
and you're going to be in Pip Bartlett world for a while, are we going to see more young adult from you?
I am working on a standalone young adult now, and then I also have outlined my first adult novel,
Exciting.
which is kind of like a Fast and Furious for women
There you
with magic.
All right.
I
Is The
felt it
Rock in
coming. I felt it
That's really
coming.
all I care about.
No.
Can you put him in it?
Yes.
Excellent. Just for me.
I think there's going to be a lot of people excited about both, and I think your audiences are going to move between them too. And I'm excited though that your children have something to read now as well.
They are as well. I'm a hero among them now.
That's right. And we're going to move on because we have Richelle Mead
All right.
coming on. Just a little bit about Maggie. How cool to see you again.
It was great to
really
see you
nice.
again.
And Leigh, and you guys have such a nice thing. There's another thing where I'm just like, you guys go. This is good.
You don't get to sit and talk very often.
No, I know. It's
It's
for
true.
sure.
It's
It's
true.
for sure. So nice to have you again. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we'll be back really soon with Richelle Mead. Thanks for being here at BookCon 2015. Hi, Hi, I'm Rich Foley of BookView Now on PBS.org, and we are at BookCon 2015 at the Javits Center in New York City. BookCon is the most spectacular gathering of passionate book readers in the country, focused a lot on the YA categories, graphic novels, comics, and books for young readers. It is an amazing group of passionate people all in one place with the authors who write the books that inspire this generation. We've got John Green, we've got Tony DiTerlizzi, we've got Jeff Smith who writes Bone, we've got Richelle Mead, we've got Jenny Han, we've got so many more running around this place, and so many of them are going to be coming right here to our set at BookView Now. At BookCon, readers come from all over the country to get close to the authors they love and to be around other readers who share the same passions they do. You'll never find people who love the books more than the people that are at BookCon, and you're going to see a lot of them today. I've heard some really interesting comments lately about reading and how many people are reading today and whether or not we're losing readers. Well, I have news. If you look around here, it'll be very clear your kids' parents are reading way more than you are. They're attached to these series like John Green, and Hollywood's noticed. If you look at the movies that are coming out now, there's so many movies, many of them that are here at BookCon, that are based on these incredibly popular books. Look at the social media followings of these authors. Hundreds of thousands in some cases, millions in some cases. Some of the most explosive energy in books and publishing today is coming from the categories that you'll see represented here at BookCon. So enjoy all the energy, enjoy all the passion. Take a look outside, see all the people that are running through this place, and have a great time with us here at BookView Now. Hi, Rich Foley. We're on the set of BookView Now at BookCon 2015. We have Leigh Bardugo, our guest host, and we've been joined by Richelle Mead. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for chatting.
Yeah, you have. There's always more than one book to talk about with you.
Many.
We have The Ruby Circle, a new Bloodlines novel, and Soundless, which has a lovely cover, I might add.
Thank
really
you. Yeah,
pretty.
I'm in love with
Really
that
pretty.
for sure.
You have to love that. And so there's, like I said, always a lot going on in your world, not to mention the Vampire Academy books, but great to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Leigh said, let's go get Richelle Mead, and we went and got Richelle Mead. And
I've told Richelle this before, but when I was first starting to read YA, I asked my niece what I should read, like what she was reading, what she loved, and the first thing she said was Vampire Academy. And then she told me how hot Dimitri was. And I was like, you're 14, stop, he's 20-something. Yeah, I gotta agree. So I dug in and I just ate them up. Like I was lucky because I came to the series a little bit late. And then the Bloodlines spinoff, just fantastic. I love Sydney, so fantastic. But Soundless is a huge departure, right?
Yeah, it's a whole new thing.
Yeah. What brought this on?
I kind of needed a pause after doing Vampire Academy and Bloodlines. That was 12 books, been going on since 2007.
Yeah.
And I have readers who will finish these in a day, and so for them, it's an endless wait. But for me, that's like every day for the last 8 years.
That's
and so,
disconcerting, right?
Yeah, you know, you don't want them to become like house guests that are staying too long, and so I'm like, we need a break from these characters. And so I wanted to try a standalone because I'm notorious for cliffhangers. I just kind of reach the end of the book and I'm like, there we go, you know, peril and heartache. And so a standalone is very challenging for me because you have to have closure, you have to wrap things up. And so as a writer, you always want to improve your writing. And then just the whole idea of setting it in a world influenced by ancient Chinese history and culture was
What
cool.
brought you to that?
It's just an interest of mine, and I feel it's underrepresented here. When people write high fantasy, it's often based on kind of medieval Europe, you know, the Tolkien legacy, which is great and I love. But there's this whole piece of the world which is neglected in the U.S. and Western Europe, and so I was like, let's dig around in that and just try to build something cool.
Is it hard to like leave the characters behind? I mean, when you write a standalone, you don't get to go back. When you write that last page, you're like, see you later. It's great to have you for a while in my life.
Yeah, it is very hard because I am so used to thinking big. You know, I think about 6 books for my other projects, and you can do the slow burn romance and the big reveal that was tipped off in book 1, and then in this, you've got to kind of truncate it all down, which is totally doable, but it's a very different art.
A lot more world building right up front, and also, but there is a strong romance in this book as well.
There is a romance, yeah. I can't help myself. The premise of the book is this remote mountain village where no one's been able to hear for generations. So they've developed this whole society. There's sign language. They're very visually based.
And one morning, this teenage girl who's an artist wakes up and she has her hearing back. And it just completely unsettles her whole world. And she discovers all these dangers that are suddenly facing her village. So she leaves the mountain, goes on a quest with this new ability. And the romance is an old love interest who comes along. So, of course, things are complicated when that happens. But it's fun because they've got their thing going on, but there's just so much adventure, and that's what's fun. It's an action book along with everything else.
I have a lot of hope that, there are fantasies out there. There's Cindy Pond's and Melinda Lowe's, and for adults, there's N.K. Jemisin's books that take us to a really different kind of fantasy world. And I kind of hope this will be a gateway drug, where, where it becomes the next big thing to actually start to look for broader cultures outside of fantasy, because we see so much of the medieval Europe and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's been a big thing, especially in YA recently, just the lack of diversity that is out there in YA books right now. And when I used to be a teacher, that was a big thing. I taught kids who were from all different countries, who were immigrants. They'd come from Bosnia, Rwanda, just these terrible stories, some of them. And they would read books, and they were always kind of disappointed that there weren't characters like them. And it wasn't even about the immigrant experience in America they wanted the Latino Harry Potter. Right. Let's just see a cool character who's having an adventure. It doesn't have to be about adjusting to America, because I'm living that, and it's a very important piece to acknowledge in the classroom.
Exactly, not just issue books.
Yeah, that was exactly it. They wanted both, and that's two very important sides, I think.
Have you read The Wrath and the Dawn or Ember in the Ashes?
I've started Ember in the Ashes, yeah.
I think we're seeing more of it.
We absolutely are. And what's amazing to me is that the young kids who are reading are living in these, I think they're developing a sense of empathy that seems to have skipped maybe a generation, but they're in these worlds where they're learning about cultures and they're learning about people, and they're so actively seeking them out now. Like you said, they want the Latino Harry Potter, they want the Soundless, they want to learn about this Asian culture, they want to learn about your world, Eastern cultures. It's this place they want to go visit that I think only adds to their inquisitiveness and their sense of empathy when they go further. And I think that we didn't always have that, at least when I was younger growing up.
And you're a parent now too, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that's changed? I know it must change how much time you have in the day to write. But do you think it's changed the kind of stories you want to tell?
I think my stories still kind of stay what I had in mind, but you're right. The writing process is so different as far as the time. Before I had kids, it's all right, I'm going to pull an all-nighter to meet this deadline.
How many do you have now?
I have two. I have boys 1 and 3. And if I don't...
Once they're mobile, well, that's her all.
No, and that's exactly it. And they go to school and daycare in the day, so it's if I don't write between 9 and 4, I don't write at all, because once they're home, it's all boys all the time, and they take over. And so that's been hard with time management and having a 1-year-old. Last year was his first year, and that's very exhausting. Just going through that, and your hormones are all over the place, and just trying to write was a very different mindset. And so I feel like I'm back in my groove, but it's still a different thing.
Different thing. Now, Maggie Stiefvater and I were on a little bit ago, and we talked about our different processes. What's your approach? Do you outline? Do you work from the spark of an idea? Did the characters come to you for Soundless first, or?
I definitely have to outline when I get to the actual writing itself. When I hit writer's block or I don't know where to go, it's because I skipped out on the outline. I didn't do a good enough job. If I do that, I've got a great roadmap and I can just go forward. So I do very detailed outlines. As far as where they come from, it's kind of just pieces of things. I think as writers, you're observers of the world. You're always watching, and being in New York is amazing because there's just constantly something crazy going on. And so you'll see something and you're like, oh, that's a cool piece, and you kind of file that away. And for me, they slowly just kind of come together, and they may be totally different concepts, things I didn't even see or think of at the same time, and you suddenly realize I can merge these and you synthesize it into something wonderful.
I always think of it as sort of like cooking, like it's cooking in the crock pot, or and then something will bubble to the surface when you need it, hopefully.
Yeah, it's like fusion cooking, right?
It's just like that, except I don't cook.
Neither do I.
We're both like, it's what we've seen on television.
Yeah, I hear it's great.
I'm really curious how, when your fandom is just really strong and you've built it over all these Vampire Academy books, but when you feel like you want to go to another place, a new place, with your books, Leigh, there's a similarity between the two series. With yours, it's a pretty significant departure. what do you think when you're sort of bringing your fans from one series to another and sort of delivering them to something new? You've built this big following.
Yeah.
How do they take that when they're moving from one series to another?
Well, my fans are great. I will say that. I am just constantly in awe of the feedback and response I get for them. And they have done a really good job of following me into new places. Because I think even when I'm doing something which is a departure, I mean, every writer has a stamp, your style to certain things. And I think I put those in there. I have characters who are very strong but also flawed. There's bits of humor, there's romance, and so people who like those elements, my readers find they can bring them to a different setting, because those are kind of the things they tune in for, and then it's like the setting is like, oh yeah, that's cool too.
Because there are a lot of other vampire books out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are other folk tales and retellings out there, but they're coming for the Richelle Mead voice and the pacing.
Yeah, I think for me, character is huge. The shows and book series I've followed, it's been the characters that hooked me in, and I will follow them sometimes through bad plot lines because I love the characters so much, and I hope I'm not delivering bad plot lines, but I feel like for a lot of my readers it's the same thing. They really connect to the characters, and I feel like I've done my job if I pull that off.
Now, the last time I saw you, you were actually in cosplay. We were in a cosplay panel together for one of the festivals, and
Yes.
you were dressed as Bonnie.
Yeah, it was Anne Bonnie from Black
Bonnie
Sails.
From Black Sails. Is that one of your fandoms? Is that one of your shows? Or you just wanted to dress like a pirate?
Well, it's a little of both.
Okay.
No, I like that show. It's very graphic, but it's the character. It's back to the characters. The characters are so interesting, and they've built and built, and that's what hooks me. And yeah, it was fun to dress as a pirate. My distressed leather coat was actually painted with acrylic and then sandpapered, and so I smelled like acrylic the whole time and kind of started to feel nauseous. But you know what? As long as you look like a pirate, it's
You're just
cool.
bobbing and weaving like you're on the ship.
Yep.
Now, this is a standalone Soundless. Although, once you've built the world, is there a temptation to do more in it, or are you ready to move on to the next thing?
I'm ready to move on. I've got some great stuff coming that's all top secret, of course. But, I mean, with any book you write, it's always in the back of your head. I could come back to it, and fans ask for it. And, I tell them I can't write a spin-off to everything, but, I've got years and years to write. And when you love characters so much, you never know what might happen.
And with the new projects, can you tell us middle grade, young adult, new adult, adult?
Still young adult.
Still young adult. All right.
I saw you tiptoeing to the edge of what you could tell us there, and I'd love to get more. I love that there's a special moment when books are still coming out in a series for both of you, when you're just doing one at a time, and you have to wait for the next one, and there's this waiting period. Same thing with Harry Potter and all these other great series. And then when you're done and you move on a series, the kids can just blow through them all in like a couple of weeks, and it's a totally different reading experience when you can. It's like binge watching a television show.
Yeah.
I love that sort of time you have to wait between them. So I love when you all go and start these new series, because you get to start the clock again and wait for them.
Well, we love readers like you, because sometimes you'll hear from people who say, why didn't the third book get published or the second book get published? Because people were waiting for the whole series to come out before they read it. And some series don't get finished.
Right. Well, I love waiting for the next one, and I loved having both of you here. Leigh, thank you for guest hosting.
My
really cool to
pleasure.
be here. And Richelle, so nice of you to join us. Love it. And I wish you guys the best. This is a great conference. There's a lot of people who are very excited to see you both, and we feel very lucky to have had you both. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for giving us a chance to chat.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I loved it too. Well, this is Rich Foley. We're on the set of BookView now at BookCon 2015. Thank you, Leigh Bardugo. Thank you, Richelle Mead. We look forward to seeing the next hour. Stay tuned.
Funding for BookView Now is provided by the Wincote Foundation.